Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to bring you the next interview in my Be Good to You video series with my sweet friend, Laura. I absolutely adore her. I love her, everything about her, the way she carries herself, the way she speaks, the way she has such a compassion for others. She is a registered nurse by trade, and she shows that love to everyone that she meets. So, Laura, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview.
My absolute pleasure, Kristen.
All right, well, let's get started. So share with me your health journey and how you weren't being good to you.
Yeah. So I thought about that a little bit since you sent me that question, and it's a great question to reflect on. I would say my health story is not real evident. Like most of my friends or family wouldn't really see a difference on my outer appearance over many years. So it's not like I have a big story that shows on the outside. But as we all know, there's always something behind what we show up in public with. So I live in this, I'm a word analogy person, so you have to bear with me on this, but I live in this small Dutch town. I've always lived in a small Dutch town. They've just been different ones. And part of our Dutch architecture is that we have these, I actually have a picture of one because I didn't know if people would know. A Dutch front looks like that. So it's a building that, you know, from the outside looks like it's all like well polished, it's clean, it's all, you know, put together, but you don't know what's behind that front and what's behind in the canal side or in the back storage area. So that would be kind of evident of me. And so I think my health story is much of it took place in places people couldn't see, and a lot of it was literally just emotional management. So I didn't know. And so I give myself a lot of grace as an adult that I didn't know better. And now that I'm learning better, I'm trying to do better, taking care of myself in that regard. So as a small girl, I lived in this super supportive house, you know, two parents, grandparents next door, cousins down this, you know, in the same neighborhood, lived in the country, pretty idyllic. In fact, when I went to college, I had someone say to me, "Who are you, June Cleaver?" Because it was just this like kind of idyllic little childhood on the outside. And I really, nothing major happened to me. It was all, again, managing my own feelings. I was a pretty sensitive kid, and I didn't know that that was different. You only know what's inside your own head. And so I had, I would say, probably anxiety or worries as a kid, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I had an eating disorder in third grade. So pretty severe. Between third grade and fourth grade, pretty severe. And at the time, this is like in the, 1970s. And so my parents were so proactive looking for help for me. But again, it's a small town. And at that time, it was so brand new, it was on 60 Minutes. And so in my little hometown, the family practice doctor just said, you know what, that's a disease for high school girls, like teenagers. So I'm sure that's not her problem. And so again, nothing my parents did wrong. It's just, again, how I did not take good care of myself, but I just didn't know how. And so over the years, I mean, that just kind of was under the surface. And I actually believe in complete recovery of eating disorders. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out there first. Complete victory, complete recovery. But it is part of my story. And so, you know, I go off to college, and again, that perfectionism, it's always under there. I'm hard on myself. Part of that Dutch heritage, our greatest strengths are our greatest weaknesses, right? So part of that, you know, we're very driven. I was a very independent person, or I tried to be. And I thought that was a goal. I thought like being independent and strong and driven were goals. Now, like I'm raised in the 70s. The whole feminist movement is going on. So of course, Donahue, I mean, this dates me, but all of those factor in. And so I just went with that. I thought that was the way to be. And I entered college. I was a nursing major, so worked hard. This is really going to date me, but I got the Lady in White award as I graduated. So like I don't think they do that anymore. But again, that shows just that driven personality. You know, I remember getting my first B in college, my final semester of my senior year of college. And I called my dad crying, and he said, "That's fantastic. I'm glad you got a B. Like, that's great." And again, so it shows my parents didn't put the pressure on me. I put the pressure on me. And again, that just continued, but you get more plates spinning. Now you're a young adult, you're in the profession. I was working in the ER as a pretty new nurse. And I think I just enjoyed trying to be I tried to be the hero. I talked about this on another interview I had this week. I just really, embraced that, like cape, like I can make a difference. I can pave the way for people. I can make a difference. I can try to manage the horizon so we minimize pressures and stressors on other people. But in that, I didn't know how to take very good care of myself, obviously. So as more plates were spinning, I guess, Mark, I'm married to a wonderful guy. I have two lovely daughters, and being a mom is hard work, isn't it, Kristen? You know. So they were awesome, but I just again took all this control and pressure on myself to do it perfectly. Like, now I look at that and I think, what in the world was I thinking? Like, you can't do it perfectly, but again, you try. So that's part of my story about not being good to me. We had a rehab clinics, multiple clinics my husband was a partner in. We owned a fitness facility. So this shows you where I was at. I couldn't even work out at the gym because I literally felt pressure. Like if there's dirty towels on the floor in the locker room, I'm picking them up instead of going to the yoga class. Or the paint is chipping and I'm in the back room checking to see if we have any paint cans left over to touch that up. I mean, I just could not relax my mind sometimes on that. And so that's kind of my story of not being good to me, Kristen. A lot of it not on the surface. I don't know that anyone could tell. And I actually don't think it's a very unique story, to be honest. I think that many women, men too, but I think a lot of young women struggle with exactly that, trying to manage what they can, control things that are out of their control, and taking on way more ownership than they were ever meant to carry. So
absolutely. Well, it goes along the lines of control the controllables, right? I mean, it just gets exhausting after a while. And you're right. As a mom, you literally, like the people that are spinning all of those plates, waiting for the next one to wobble and then fall. So no, I completely get that analogy for sure. So, so going forward, so what habits and mental well-being practices do you do today to be good to yourself?
Yeah. So I would say, again, it's a progression and things that I've learned over the years. So I would say starting in my 30s, I really was more deliberate in getting some mentors that were about 20 years older than me. And they happened to kind of fall in my lap, literally. One moved to Pella and another one was living here. And I reached out to them in another capacity. We developed a writing group, but it actually, God designed it. I mean, they became mentors to me. So I would say mentors, I would say time. I think sometimes just the fact that we get older and we get some maturity, we hit enough bumps in the road that we realize we can't control everything. Those are some things. As far as daily habits, again, I wish I was more consistent, but I am really trying to take time every morning. So I will light a candle. I just got myself one of those, they're like the old-fashioned sand capsule things. So I'm not even looking at the dreaded phone because I get distracted by so many things. So I literally, put that over. It's a 30-minute, the sand falls through. And I am going through, I have a Bible that has the daily readings. So it has like an Old Testament, Psalm, and a New Testament. I love it because it's structured. I just need structure because the minute I'm just on my own, meandering around trying to land somewhere, I get distracted. So the consistency has been good, and I've done that for a number of years. I also just physically, I'm doing some things in my life, drinking my water. I walk my dog with a friend a couple of times a week. I lift weights a couple times a week, which has been a new thing for me in the last few years that has really been good for me. And I think, this isn't a daily thing, but I think I'm more cognizant of giving myself a wider swath of grace. And part of that is age. Part of it, honestly, my adult kids model this well for me. So the things that I apologize to them over, their childhood, they just give me so much grace. They laugh about it. They know my quirks and they love me anyway. So I think that just that time and maturity has happened, that I'm better to myself because, quite honestly, other people have given me a lot of grace.
Absolutely. It's so easy to give others grace and not ourselves. Yeah, I totally get that. So in closing, what advice would you give to others to really encourage them to be good to themselves?
That's a great question. Sometimes it's so much easier to give grace to other people, like you just said. So sometimes if we can turn that around and pose the question, what would I say to a friend? And to treat myself like a friend. So, and I really enjoyed being with myself. I mean, I don't apologize about that. I like spending time with myself. I'm comfortable with that. So I guess embrace how you're made, how God designed you. I think giving yourself a better perspective of what you can control and what you can't. And honestly, you're going to be surprised what you can't control. And actually I didn't think about this, but I had someone, it's actually a fellow health coach. She did a wonderful job of saying, take a piece of paper, write a line down the middle, and on one side list all the things you can control, like things that are concerning you, but things you can control. On the other side, list all your concerns of things that you cannot control. And she said, on the side that you can control, that's your to-do list. And on the side that you cannot control, that's your prayer list. And that's been a helpful exercise for me. And like I said, with my daily readings of scripture, I also, you've probably heard of the ACTS, ACTS, so adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication. Again, the more structure I put in my day, the more I don't waste the mental energy thinking through what I should do, if that makes sense. So those are some habits. And then, the final thing, I guess, of what I would say, if you're listening and you're struggling with perfectionism or trying to control situations, one thing a doctor said to me years ago, he said, Laura, you think you can control more things than you can. So again, just listening to the voices around you of people telling you truth like that there was something freeing in that. I cannot control outcomes. So in my job as a nurse, in my role as a mother, in my role as a wife, as a daughter-in-law, as a health coach, I stay in my own lane, and I'm learning that. I'm 49. So with age comes some bumps, and again, then some life lessons. If I stay in my lane and I use the gifts and the wiring and any tool that God gives me to help someone else run their race, I need to do that with 100%, but have good boundaries. I've got to stay in my own lane. I don't run in your lane, Kristen, and push you down and take your baton and run for you. I need to stay in my lane and encourage you to stay in your lane. And there we go. We keep running the race marked out for us. And that's what I would say. And then I joke, but I only half joke about this. My tombstone someday, I want it to say, she tried. I tried. I did the best I could do.
Yes. Well done, good and faithful servant, right? Exactly. Right. So I love it, Laura. Thank you so much for just being so honest about your life, and that perfection monster is a real thing. And I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm not sure when we start to think that that's the way it has to be. So I really appreciate your honesty with that, because I think that is so debilitating. I know for myself it happens a lot, but I appreciate you sharing that with others.
Yeah. You're so welcome. And if it helps anyone, know you're not alone. Like I said, it's not a unique story by any means. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Laura, for taking the time out of your busy day. And I appreciate all that you said and all the encouragement you gave to others.
you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.